We all get the same 168 hours in a week. It's supposed to be the great equalizer, right? But if that's really true, how come some people seem to get just a crazy amount more done with their time, and they do it without burning out? What's going on there?
I mean, really think about it. You've got guys like Jack Dorsey running two huge companies, Twitter and Square, at the same time. Or Elon Musk, who's juggling what, like 5 world-changing ventures? It's wild. And the thing is, they have the exact same 24 hours in a day as you and me. So what is their secret?
Okay, and here it is. This is the fundamental shift. The top 1%? They're not using some secret calendar app or a fancier to-do list. Nope, they've changed the entire game. They've stopped trying to manage their time, and instead they've started managing their attention. And you've got to get this because it's so important. If you're still just focused on little tactics, time blocking here, batching tasks there, you are totally missing the forest for the trees. What you need isn't another hack. It's a complete overhaul. It's like a new operating system for how you run your work, and really, your entire life.
So, let's dive into this new operating system. It's called the 3-2-1 system. It sounds simple, and it is, but it's an incredibly powerful framework for making sure your attention goes to what actually, truly matters.
All right, so the first piece of the puzzle is the 3. This is all about understanding the 3 distinct roles that you can play in your work. See, most people struggle with productivity simply because they're playing the wrong game for their current level. It's a mismatch.
So here they are, the maker, the marker, and the multiplier. And as you can see, each one has a completely different focus, a different number of priorities they're juggling, and a totally different key action. Let's break down what each of these really means.
First up, we have the maker. This is your classic heads-down, deep work role. You've got just a handful of priorities, super clear timelines, and your job is just to, well, do the thing. The perfect example is early career Taylor Swift. Her entire world was just writing and recording songs. That is a maker, pure and simple.
Okay, then you might level up to become the marker. Now you're managing more priorities and probably a team. Your job shifts from doing all the work yourself to reviewing and guiding the work of others. You're basically the editor, not the writer anymore. The real trick here is figuring out what's absolutely mission critical, what you have to keep your hands on, and what you can start delegating.
And finally, we get to the multiplier. At this stage, you're juggling dozens of responsibilities. Your job isn't to get bogged down in the details anymore, it's to connect the right people and orchestrate the big picture. I love this description from Eric Schmidt. He says you become the most expensive router in the organization. And this brings the Taylor Swift analogy full circle, doesn't it? Today, she's still a maker when it comes to her music, but in every other part of her global empire, she is a full-blown multiplier. So here's the bottom line for this first part. Your whole strategy has to match your role. It's that simple. If you're a maker and you try to delegate everything, you're going to fail. And if you're a multiplier who's micromanaging every tiny detail, well, your whole team is going to fail. You just have to know which game you're playing.
Okay, let's move on to the second part of the system, the 2. This is where it gets really interesting because it's not just about your role. It's also about the environment you're in. Your focus has to shift depending on whether you're in what we call wartime or peacetime.
So in peacetime, things are pretty stable, maybe even growing. Your main job is to delegate, empower your team, and really just get out of the way so they could do their best work while you focus on long-term growth. But in wartime, when a crisis hits, all the rules go out the window. You have to roll up your sleeves, dive back into the details, and personally steer the ship through the storm.
The Airbnb story from 2020 is just a perfect example of this. For years, as the company was exploding, founder Brian Chesky was in total peacetime mode, playing that multiplier role. But then the pandemic hit and their business basically fell off a cliff. Suddenly it was wartime. He had no choice but to abandon that high-level role, get his hands dirty, and get deep into the weeds of the product again to literally save the company.
And this leads to a really critical insight. Your zone dictates your role. See? A massive crisis might force a multiplier to act like a marker, or maybe even a maker for a little while. The big takeaway here is that your system for managing attention can't be set in stone. It has to be dynamic. It has to bend.
All right, which brings us to the final and I'd say most focused part of this whole system, the 1. So after you've defined your role and you know your zone, you then have to identify your one non-negotiable thing.
And I really want you to think about this for yourself for a second. Right now, in your current role, in your current zone, what is the one thing
the single most important activity that only you can do. What is the one thing that is absolutely, positively impossible to delegate? That's it, just one. Not 2, not 5, not 10, 1. The real power of this entire system comes down to that kind of brutal focus. It forces all of us, to cut through all the noise and find the absolute core of what we're there to do.
So this is your non-negotiable. It's that single high-leverage activity that you can't delegate, the one that drives the biggest results. You are uniquely positioned to do this one thing. And here's the kicker. Everything else, everything, becomes a candidate for delegation.
Let me give you a great real-world example. There was a CEO of a super fast-growing tech company, and he realized he was becoming the bottleneck. So he asked himself that exact question, what's the one thing only I can do? And his answer? Building mission-driven relationships. So that's what he did. He focused all his proactive time on recruiting top talent, shaping the culture, and building partnerships with key customers. You know, the stuff only a CEO can do. And everything else? He delegated it.
Okay, so right about now you're probably thinking, this all sounds great, but how on earth do I actually delegate all that other stuff? And that is a great question. That's where the master key comes in. See, the whole 3-2-1 system falls apart without effective delegation. And delegation, well, that requires trust. So the real game we're playing here isn't time management, it's trust management.
You know, the relationship between Steve Jobs and his design chief, Johnny Ive, it's really the gold standard for this. Jobs was famously, almost pathologically, obsessed with details. But Johnny Ive said he never ever felt micromanaged. How is that possible? Because Jobs was in the details to learn and to help, not to control. He was a partner, not a boss.
So how do you actually build that kind of trust?
Well, you tailor your delegation style. It's not one size fits all. With a new teammate, you work right alongside them to give them comfort and show them the ropes. With an experienced teammate, you guide them closely to provide clarity. But for an expert, a real pro like Johnny Ive, you just give them context, get out of their way, and only step in when they need you to unblock something.
All right, so here's your homework. Here's how you can put this into action, like this week. And please, don't try to do it all at once. Just pick one of these to start. Number 1, define your current role. Or number 2, name your current zone. Or maybe just write down your one non-negotiable. Heck, even just finding one small, repeatable task you can delegate is a huge first step to start building that trust muscle.
Because in the end, this is the big idea that ties it all together. You can't control time. You're never going to get more of it. All you can do is become a better steward of the time you already have, and you do that by managing your attention. That right there is how you finally make time for what truly, truly matters.